Hello, today we're going to do lesson 1-1, identifying points, lines, and planes. Our big question here is how do you name geometric figures? So you should be able to answer that by the time you're done completing this lesson. So first of all, we're going to start with a frame. The key topic here is basic geometry shapes, and this is about identifying points, lines, and planes. So some of the basics of geometry that we need to start by talking about. So this is about, first of all, our first key idea is going to be points. Our next main idea will be a line. The third main idea will be planes. The fourth is line segments. And then the final main idea is rays. So we're going to talk about all 5 of these things, what their dimensions are, their representations, how to label, and an important idea for both of them. So first of all, for points, dimensions, length, width, height, well, they don't have any, so dimensions for a point are none. Representations, what do they look like? They're going to be a dot with a capital letter next to them. How we label this we would call point, so we actually write the word point. And then we use the letter. So that would be point A. Important ideas for this, we have 2 of them. The first one is collinear, and that means just like it sounds, co means together, linear is line, so collinear is on the same line. The other important idea is coplanar. So co is together, planar sounds like plane, so this means on the same plane. So collinear on the same line, coplanar on the same plane. So that's our information about points. Next thing we'll do will be a line. Dimensions for a line is 1, they just have a length. Representations, we make lines look like this. We're going to draw a line with an arrow at both ends. And I'm going to put 2 points on here because we need at least 2 points to make a line. So I put points A and B. And then I'm going to put a little lowercase m next to this. And notice that m does not have a point next to it. So the ways we could label this line, we could label it line AB, so we write the 2 capital letters and then a line symbol above it. We could also flip those around and call it line BA with the line symbol above it. Or we could use the word line and then put that little lowercase letter that it's not a point, it's just a letter that goes with the line. We would not say line A or line B, only line M. Key thing here, an important idea, is through any 2 points, there is exactly, so no more, no less, exactly 1 line. The next thing that we're going to talk about here is planes. So for a plane, there are 2 dimensions. It's going to have a length and a width. Think of just like a thin sheet of paper. It's going to have no depth, just a length and a width. So to draw a plane, this gets a little trickier. We draw it looking like this. Think of that almost like looking onto a side of a piece of paper. So I'm going to put a couple points on here. I'm going to put a point A, I'm going to put another point B, and I'm going to put another point with a C next to it. And then I'm going to label this, and I'm going to put a Y. Now notice I did not put a point with that Y. I just put the letter Y on there. So to label this, I would call it plane. And then I have to use 3 points on it. So plane A, B, C. You could also say plane CBA or plane BAC. You would not say plane ABY because Y is not a point on it. You could though say plane Y because Y is just a letter given to that plane. It is not a point. So an important idea here is through any 3 non-collinear points share is exactly one plane. So you have to have 3 points to form a plane, and those points have to be non-collinear, so they cannot be on the same line. Line segments. Line segments have one dimension. They're like a portion of a line. They look like this. They're going to be a line, but instead of arrows at both ends, we're going to have solid dots at both ends, showing that that stops in both places. So I'm going to put an A at this point and a B at the second point. And I would call this, I'm use the capital A, capital B, just like before, but above it, I'm just going to put a little line segment. You could also call this segment BA. You could flip those two around. So our important idea here is that the order does not matter for naming. And our final main idea here is array. Array has one dimension. It's like a portion of a line again. The difference here is there's going to be one endpoint, and then it's going to keep going in the opposite direction. So I'm going to put another point on here, B. So I will call this ray AB. And notice my A has to go first because that's the endpoint. So it has to go under the endpoint in the ray. An important idea here is opposite rays. Okay, these share an endpoint, and they go in opposite directions. Okay, so opposite rays share an endpoint, but go in opposite directions. So for all of our frames, we should always have a so what statement so that we know what's important to understand about this one. Our so what for the basic geometry shapes is that we need to be able to accurately communicate with each other. We're all naming these things with different names and labeling them different ways, we will not understand what each other's talking about. So let's go through and do the notes for this lesson. Again, 1-1, identifying points, lines, and planes. The big question is, how do you name geometric figures? So example 1, name points, lines, and planes. So give 2 other names for line LN. So line LN is right here. Okay, here's my line LN. So here's a point on it, M, point L, and point N. And there's a little lowercase b there. That lowercase b is not a point. So I can call it line B, because that B is not a point. Or I could call it line, I could just flip the letters around and say line NL with the line symbol above it. Or I could say line ML with the line symbol above it. Or I could say line MN. So there's more than 2 options. There are more than even just what I wrote. Second part, give another name for plane Z. So we label planes using 3 letters. Okay, Z is not a point. Sorry, we're labeling using 3 points. Z is not a point, it's just a letter on there. So I'm going to call that plane. So plane Z is right here. Okay, I'm outlining it. Here's my plane Z. So 3 points on there would be L, M, N, and P is also on that plane. So we could use any combination of those 3. So I'm going to say plane P, M, N. You could also say plane L, M, P. Those would be options. Any 3 combination of those letters. So name 3 points that are collinear. Again, collinear is on the same line. So 3 points that are collinear would be points L, M, and N. Those would be collinear. And there are not 3 other points on that picture that are collinear. So let's name 4 points that are coplanar. Coplanar means on the same plane. So we are going to have to write points L, M, N, and P, because those are coplanar. We would not include Z or a lowercase b there because those are not points. C, other names for line LN are, so let's look at where our line LN is. So here's my line LN, and again, we've already talked about these ones. We said we could have line B, or we could say line NL. So there's just two options. There are others. Other name for plane Z are plane PMN or plane LMP. Points blank lie on the same line, so points L, M, and N, they lie on the same line. That's collinear. Points L, M, N, and P lie on the same plane, so they are coplanar. Our extra example here. So give two other names for line MQ. So let's find our line MQ. Line MQ is right here. So it's got M on it and it's got Q on it, and A is a lowercase letter. That is not a point. So I can call it line A. Or I could flip M and Q around and say line with the line symbol QM. And those would be my only options for name. Name a point that is not coplanar with lines L, with points L, N, and P. So points L, N, and P are on plane B here. A point that's not on that plane would be point Q. Okay, example 2, name segments rays and opposite rays. It says give another name for segment. There's a little segment symbol above VX. So segment VX is right here. Okay. W is actually another point because two lines have to intersect in a point. So W is a point there. So I've got the points V, W, and X on that line. So another name for segment VX, well, even though W is on there, we still need our endpoints of this segment. So the only other option would be segment XV. It's the only other way we can name that segment because we must have the endpoints. B, name all rays with endpoints W. Okay, so let's erase some of this stuff here. All the rays with endpoint W. So W is right in the middle there. I've got one ray starting in the middle coming down. That would be ray WZ. I've got to start with the endpoint. And its opposite ray would start at W and go up through Y. So the opposite ray would be ray WY. Those two are opposite rays because they share an endpoint and go in opposite directions. Our other opposite rays here would start at W and go this way. So ray WX, or I'm sorry, ray WV. That's one ray that starts with endpoint W. The other would be ray W. It starts at W and goes through X. So, and ray WX. Those two are also opposite rays because they share an endpoint and go in opposite directions. Extra example here. It says give another name for ray YW. So let's find where ray YW is. So my ray YW must start at Y. So it's right here and it goes this way through W. So when I name this, my new other name, it's got to have the Y come first because that's the endpoint. It also goes through point Z that ray does, so I can call it ray YZ. That would be another name for it. Next one, are ray VX and ray XV the same thing? Well, just look at right here. Rays always start with the endpoint. Those two have different endpoints. So are they the same ray? No, they have different endpoints. They can't be. Are ray Vx and ray Vx the same thing? Well, they have the same endpoints, so yep, they must be. Example 3, sketch intersections of lines and planes. So this is where things can get a little bit difficult when you're drawing pictures. So I will try and draw these to the best of my ability here. It says sketch a plane and a line that intersects the plane at more than one point. So to draw a plane, like I showed on the frame, we're going to do almost like a sideways piece of paper that you're looking onto. And then to make it a little easier in my sketches, I'm going to shade it. If you just have a pencil, shade it in just really, really lightly. Because I'll use different colors, but you can just shade it lightly with your pencil. So there's my plane, and I want a line that intersects that plane at more than one point. Well, to intersect it or touch it, intersect means touch or go through it, it's going to have to be on the whole thing. So I'm just going to draw a line right on the plane. And that line would intersect that plane at more than one point. Next one, sketch a plane and a line that is in the plane. Well, that's really the picture we just drew, a plane with a line in it. It says then sketch another line that intersects the line and plane at a point. So here's my plane. Again, I'm going to shade it. Okay. The line in the plane is really what we just drew. So I'm going to add that blue line into my plane here. And then the next thing says, sketch another line that intersects the line and plane at a point. So here's how we draw a line that just intersects at a point. So I'm going to have it intersect at this point that I'm drawing. I'm going to have it come like it's coming out of the plane. And then it's going to have to go down below the plane, so we do a dashed line to show that it's behind the plane, and then a solid line where it would come out the bottom. The extra example here, sketch two different lines that intersect a plane at different points. So let me draw my plane here. Okay, so there's my plane. And I want two lines that intersect this plane, but they have to intersect at different points. So here's a line that intersects it at this point right here. We do a dash to show going behind the plane and solid coming out the bottom. And then here I'm going to have another line intersecting at this point. It'll go solid as it comes out of the plane, and then dashed where it will go behind it. And then solid where it would come out below the plane again. Next, sketch two planes that intersect in a line. So if you think about it, two planes intersecting, they're always going to intersect in a line, but this is still a little bit more difficult to draw. I'm going to draw it over here. So I'm going to start by drawing my first plane, just like we've drawn them all along. A little sideways piece of paper that you're looking at. Okay, so there's my first plane, shaded it in a little bit. Okay, my second plane, I think it's easiest if you start by drawing a line along the front. So this plane is going to go straight up and down. And it would touch back here, and I'm going to draw a line. It would come behind, down here, and solid where it would be at the bottom. I'm going to draw kind of a oblique line here and up here. And then I'm going to connect these 2 points right here with a line, because the two planes are going to intersect in a line. It says two planes that intersect in a line. So here's my second plane that I'll shade in. It's going to be, this part right here is going to be behind. So then I'll shade the bottom. And then they're going to intersect in a line. So here is my line that they're intersecting. And that is the end of this lesson. Have a good day.